Welcome. This is a Snohomish County League of Women Voters Candidate Forum. Today's forum features candidates for Congressional Representative for Congressional District 8. I'm Valerie Cole Kelly, a member of the League. This forum is being live streamed to our League YouTube channel. To those in the virtual space, thank you for joining us. Let me provide some background on this position. The House of Representatives is responsible for declaring war, maintaining the armed forces, assessing taxes, borrowing money, minting currency, regulating commerce, and making all laws necessary for the operation of government. The total membership of the House is up for election in even-numbered years. U.S. Congressional Representative is a partisan office, and candidates may declare a party affiliation. However, it is the policy of the League of Women Voters to be nonpartisan. Therefore, we neither endorse nor oppose candidates or parties. Congressional District 8 includes the eastern portions of King, Pierce, and Snohomish counties, and crosses the Cascade Mountains to include Chelan and Kittitas counties. The district's western part includes the Snohomish County cities of Darrington, Granite Falls, Sultan, Gold Bar, and Index, as well as the Wild Sky Wilderness area. Candidates for representative in Congressional District 8 are Kim Schrier and Carmen Goers. The rules for participation in this forum were sent ahead of time to both candidates, and they have agreed to follow them. I will pose the questions and will clearly state the amount of time allowed for each answer. We are using a countdown timer visible to all candidates, and time limits on answers will be strictly enforced. The order for the first question was chosen randomly and will be Kim Schrier and then Carmen Goers. I will then alternate candidates in the starting position to ensure a fair sequence. So let's begin. Candidates will have 90 seconds each to respond to the first 10 questions. First question, Ms. Schrier, what are the top 2 or 3 issues you feel need to be addressed by this office? Please explain why you are focusing on these issues.
Of course. Well, first, thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this and for your commitment to democracy. I'm delighted to be here. Just as a reminder, I served this community as a pediatrician for 18 years before running for Congress in 2018, and have been honored to represent this district for the past 6 years. When you ask what top priorities are, the way I learned that is using the skills of a pediatrician to learn and engage with all of the people that I represent, whether individually or through town halls, and I've done 115 of them to date, and I listen to their concerns, and then I take those concerns directly to the House of Representatives and see how I can help. And what I hear from the constituents in this district is what I make the top priorities. So one of those is making sure we bring down the cost of living, including groceries and housing. I am working hard on both of those already and will continue to. A second one is choice, making sure that women can make their own healthcare decisions, because I trust women and I am a woman doctor in the House and will fight to make road the law of the land. And then the third is safety in our communities and at our borders. And I will continue to work to make sure everybody feels safe in their community. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Goers, same question. Whoops, we need to unmute, sorry.
I was getting ready for that. Thank you. He says, my top 3 issues are, as stated, the cost of living. The increasing cost of our basic necessities of food and shelter have far outpaced our wages in the last several years. The second issue is public safety and the fentanyl crisis. We're losing our family members and community members at an alarming rate that needs to be addressed. The third issue is, which I don't hear at the doors, but I know is a personal issue, is supporting our foster youth by holding federal cash benefits in trust. This will support them so that they have financial resources as they launch into adulthood. Having lived, volunteered, and worked throughout the 8th Congressional District for the past 20 plus years, I believe we've been underserved and underrepresented. Because when I'm doorbelling or at community events, I hear consistently those top two issues. I plan to champion legislation that supports our families and farmers, encourages economic stability, and I will work with local leaders of law enforcement to address the growing epidemic of fentanyl and mental health concerns in the community. And I really appreciate the opportunity to provide those resources. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Goers, we'll stick with you for the next question. What qualifications and experience make you a good choice to address these issues?
Yes, thank you. As I mentioned,
yeah.
Sorry. Ready?
Go.
So, I'm the chief financial officer of our household. I understand the compounding pressures when wages are outpaced by the cost of basic necessities, like we mentioned, housing, food, and fuel. As a commercial banker, I've worked for community and business leaders, analyzing financial information to provide crucial financial guidance and support prosperity through impactful solutions. I've served our community for 20 plus years in various organizations, nonprofit leadership, from microfinance to education, serving young ladies aging out of foster care and those incarcerated. My service was recognized by King County Council with the Martin Luther King Medal of Distinguished Service Award in 2021. It is the highest award that they can bestow upon a resident. And that's because I've developed a heart to listen for understanding, and it allows me to work towards viable solutions. I've served diligently these last 20 years. I recently served as chair of a regional coalition of chambers, and I've advocated for legislation in support of families and business leaders. I'm excited to say that we're successful in getting a state transportation package for the area, and that's helped our economic vitality here in the Kent Valley. So during this campaign, I've received endorsements of over 60 local elected officials, including Washington Council of Police and Sheriffs and King County Police Officer Guild. That was because they believe that there's a need for a change in representation, and I'm here to serve.
Thank you. Ms. Schrier, what qualifications and experience make you a good choice?
Well, I have represented this district for the past 6 years and have proved my ability to listen, to take those concerns to Congress, and to deliver in a very bipartisan way. After 115 town halls, listening, taking the hard questions, going to Washington, D.C., and working with my Republican colleagues, the personality of a pediatrician is pretty disarming. And so I've been able to find partnerships and find common ground with my Republican colleagues so much that I've gotten 18 of my own bills passed through the House, the Senate, and signed into law. And about half of those were signed by President Trump and half by President Biden. And it's this track record of no matter who is in the White House, no matter who's in the majority, I am going to be able to work with my colleagues in both parties to deliver for this district. I've brought home benefits like funding for police departments, like senior center improvements, like housing for veterans, like a school-based health clinic, like wastewater treatment plants. These are things that individual communities in this district need, and I've taken those concerns and then delivered on them. And it feels great for people to see those taxpayer dollars come right back to their communities.
Thank you. And Ms. Schrier, we'll stick with you for the next question. If elected, what will be your funding priorities? 90 seconds.
Well, it is the primary responsibility of the House of Representatives to make sure we fund the government. And that has been a priority. And in every single Congress, I have worked in a bipartisan way to make sure we've gotten that done. In terms of funding, I've alluded to some of the projects that I've already brought tremendous funding home for. I mean, a school-based health clinic in Graham, it fills a healthcare desert. It provides healthcare to students where they are. It also, in fact, is there for faculty and for the whole community. And it's made such a difference, and the community knows it. I would also say that bringing home $4 million for police and safety in terms of body cameras, co-responders, and social workers, keeps our communities safe. And then I'll add that I have worked so hard to make sure that we've gotten funding for housing, whether that is housing, affordable housing improvements in Enumclaw, or housing for veterans in Ellensburg. These are priorities. While I have a few seconds left, food banks have been another significant investment across the district at a time of need and at a time of very high price gouging grocery store prices.
Thank you. Ms. Goers, what about your funding priorities?
Yes, thank you very much. As we saw this past summer, wildfire prevention and response is on the top of my priorities. The management of our federal lands is imperative that we manage them to reduce and mitigate the severity of wildfires and the risk of therefore. The second part is affordability, expanding affordable housing initiatives, getting the Farm Bill passed. That's really essential to our local farmers here. We're losing them at an alarming rate because of the insufficient passage of that Farm Bill that's been asked for the last several years, and addressing our daycare deserts. Having daycare deserts and the lack of affordability thereof impacts our families' ability to return to the workforce. So that's another issue that I would like to focus on. And then to some degree, similar is our healthcare access. Increasing funding for rural healthcare services, especially for our underserved areas. And so along with that, I was recently in Ellensburg and heard of a woman that was preparing for labor, and her delivery center was so far away that if there were complications, she was going to have to come over to the west side to deliver that child. Your zip code should not determine the quality or the quality of healthcare or availability of healthcare to you anywhere in the 8th Congressional District. And I believe that's imperative for us to do that. Now, in order to address those funding priorities, it's imperative that Congress actually pass a balanced budget. We haven't had one since 2001. I guess both parties are at fault, but we have not had that leadership to get that done. And I believe Congress needs to act now.
Thank you. And Ms. Goers, we'll stay with you. Thinking about the issue of immigration, what policy recommendations, if any, would you make or support?
Thank you. This is also a significant issue here in the 8th Congressional District. I would like to strengthen our border security, increasing funding for physical barriers, surveillance technology, and staffing at not just the southern border, but also our northern border to curb illegal immigration and enhance national security. A few years ago, I was coming back from vacation and I was able to walk through immigration because they did visual verification, and it took me moments to get through. The technology is there and it needs to be used. I also believe that we have a merit-based immigration reform, shift the immigration system towards a merit-based criteria, prioritizing skilled workers and professionals to support the U.S. economy while ensuring that their pathways are streamlined and enforced. And we need to have compassion for those that are here, that are dreamers, that were here as children, and we need to have compassion and resolve this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Schrier, immigration.
Well, immigration is fundamental to our country. Unless we are Native American, all of our families came here from somewhere for very similar reasons. That said, we have a real crisis on our southern border, and I have worked to increase funding for Border Patrol, for surveillance, for cameras, with every funding bill. In addition, there was just a bipartisan bill negotiated between President Biden and Republicans in the Senate that would have taken a big step forward to restoring humanity, dignity, order, and thoroughness at our southern border and increase security. And it was set to pass the Senate and then come to the House, where I would have voted for it. But then Donald Trump called his Republican allies in the Senate and told them to kill the bill because he wanted to make it a political issue. That's just not right. I am here to do what this country needs, to serve, not to play political football. I also want to say that we need common sense reforms that I have also voted for. These are bipartisan. One is to protect the dreamers. They need the security of being here and knowing they will stay here and not be deported. And we have a Farm Workforce Modernization Act that will help bring people working in agriculture to legal status so they can stay here as security.
Thank you. And Ms. Schrier, staying with you, next question, again, 90 seconds. What, if any, environmental legislation or regulation is a priority for you?
Climate change is an existential threat in our country and around the world. We are seeing more and more extreme weather events, and all you have to do is look at our summers where our forests are up in smoke, or just look at last week and what we have seen across the country. This is why I was so proud to join with my colleagues and pass the largest investment ever in climate action. This has spurred innovation, research, technology, not just the development, but also the deployment. And we're seeing it right here in Washington State. I fought to make sure that we would be a Northwest green hydrogen hub. We competed fiercely for this, and we are one of just 8 in the entire country, and that is spurred by this climate bill. In addition, we have battery manufacturing in Moses Lake, and Pacific Northwest National Lab is doing research to accelerate the development of new batteries that don't require the rare earth minerals that current ones do. I am excited, being on the Energy and Commerce Committee, to be able to continue to push our policy forward for clean energy and to streamline permitting so that we can get those projects in the ground and take on climate change with the seriousness and urgency that it deserves.
Thank you. Ms. Goers, environmental legislation or regulation?
Yes. I would look at my high priority would be in protecting the 4 lower Snake River dams. There's been a constant attack to remove our dams, and the results will be detrimental based on the information I've read and seen. These dams have transformed our region and are very important to our agricultural. They help manage flood control. They actually help navigate products up and down the river. But also, I think this is key that gets lost in the conversation. They provide a low cost, affordable, reliable, and clean energy for the entire region. And it's important that we support the dams. And we can do that and restore while restoring our salmon population. I was just out in Leavenworth last week, looking at the salmon recovery after, I believe it was the 25th anniversary. And we've put a lot of work and innovation into not only restoring our salmon, but finding ways to increase the salmon's likelihood of survival coming back through the dams. It's now over 90%. And that's because there's innovation in that industry so that we can accomplish 2 things at once. The other component that is extremely important to review around that environmental is the reintroduction of grizzlies to the North Cascades. It has caused great angst within our farming community and even with our hiking communities and our residents. We must address those concerns prior to any placement of an apex predator into the region. And those will be my priorities.
Thank you. And Ms. Goers, sticking with you, 90 seconds. What will you do, if anything, to support a vibrant economy in your district?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I'm a commercial banker, and I've worked with business owners over the last 20 plus years on finding financing and working on solutions to help them thrive in their business and to be that resource. So at the congressional level, I would look for tax cuts and simplification. How do we lower our taxes and reduce regulatory burdens to stimulate business investments, create jobs, and boost consumer spending? It's hard for business owners and leaders to make decisions when they're not sure what Congress will do. There's also the deregulation and rolling back unnecessary government regulations to allow businesses, particularly small businesses. And I worked with startups in Washington and Alaska for many years. And starting up business is very expensive. How do we encourage innovation, expand, and allow them to even compete globally? The other component would be our free trade and competitive markets. I would really highly work towards promoting our free trade agreements while ensuring domestic industries remain competitive, fostering economic growth through global commerce and fair competition. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Schrier, what will you do, if anything, to support a vibrant economy in your district?
Well, when I think about the economy in our district, it is very varied, everything from healthcare to recreational economy to hydropower to agriculture to small businesses. And I first just want to say that I have a strong track record of going to bat for our small businesses with grants and loans to keep them afloat during difficult times. Because I understand that they are the backbone of our economy, and they are the first to bounce back, and they keep our communities with character. I also want to say that the agriculture economy in this district is critical. It's why I was such a huge proponent for getting a pop-up port, the Port of Seattle, because our hay farmers needed to get their hay overseas and the port was not functioning well enough. And I went to bat for them because, again, I was listening, hearing, and delivering. In addition, some of our apple orchards were at risk of going out of business. In fact, a $120 million market to India was almost decimated by some retaliatory tariffs from India. I fought for 2 years, got those reversed, and now our farmers, our orchardists, are selling apples back to India again. I will continue to work, including for childcare, to make sure we have a robust economy in the 8th.
Thank you, Ms. Schrier. And sticking with you on the next question, what legislative remedies would you propose, if any, to address affordability of childcare? 90 seconds.
Well, childcare and the expense of childcare is tremendous. Many people don't know this, but it costs about $3,500 a month to have an infant in full-time childcare. That's just plain unaffordable. And if you end up with 2 children that often means that one parent leaves their job, and that impacts our economy, and it takes away choices from people who might want to be in the workforce. This is why I have made it such a priority as a pediatrician and a member of Congress to take this on. I have voted to cap childcare expenses at no more than 7% of income so that everybody can afford to have high quality childcare for their kiddos. It is why I fully support universal optional preschool in order, again, to get every child kindergarten ready and make sure that they have the best path to a bright future. It is one of the best investments we can make in our children. And finally, we need to make sure that we set aside pre-tax dollars for childcare. There is already a $5,000 set aside. I have a bipartisan bill that bumps it up to $10,000, but I'll tell you, we need to go even higher, especially given the cost of childcare right now. I will continue to work on this.
Thank you. Ms. Goers, same question.
Thank you. Well, as a mother and a grandmother of 4 with a 5th on the way, this issue is very close to home. Average cost of toddlers is about $14,000, which is my youngest who's now started off to school. But throughout our district, we have childcare deserts, which is an added strain to working class families like myself. My recommendations would include supporting employer-sponsored childcare programs through tax incentives so that you can be near your child, get back into the workforce as you choose to, and have that support in your communities. A second recommendation is to simplify our regulations and reduce the red tape for childcare providers. To open up a childcare location can be onerous between local permits, staffing considerations, getting materials, and the workforce that's available to even support you. So we need to provide support and assistance in getting that done. A third recommendation is to support grants to providers with incentives when expanding, especially to our underserved areas. Currently, 80% of Snohomish lives within a childcare desert, and this impacts the ability for spouses to return to the workforce. I believe this is critical not only for families, but also for workforce development. Thank you.
Thank you. And sticking with you, Ms. Goers, what role, if any, should government play in regulating social media? 90 seconds.
Thank you so much. Well, social media, there's a few components to social media. Again, being a grandparent with my 9-year-old grandson now uses AI to write stories for himself to entertain himself. And I'm concerned about some of the things that he may come across. I'm not quite sure, but we need to protect our young people in the oversight of that. From a business perspective, we want to make sure that we have practices that can promote a competition and prevent market dominance, so that things aren't being infiltrated within our youth and communities. But along with my grandson and my daughters, I want to make sure that we have privacy protections, that we implement strong privacy laws to protect users' data from exploitation, working with business owners and the overtaking of using social media to overtake different platforms and different user profiles is something that we need to keep guardrails up for, and it's imperative that we do it. AI is going to continue to grow, social media is going to continue to grow, and I know that as we move forward, the next generation needs us to work now to save them and prevent harm to coming to them in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Schrier, social media.
Well, social media has its benefits, but it has a lot of real and potential harms. And I am very concerned that we are, experimenting on a whole generation of kids who are not sleeping enough, who are not learning social interactions, and who are becoming more and more addicted to social media. We're seeing impacts on their mental health, their attention in school, and I believe that we do need to protect them. We've also seen writ large more outrage and division. And this is in good part because social media is supported by more clicks and more outrage. I just want to mention that I am the lead sponsor of a bill called the Kids Online Safety Act. Let's at least start with our kids, given their mental health crisis and their need for sleep and data privacy. This bill protects their privacy by making data sharing an opt-in instead of an opt-out. It addresses the algorithms that make social media so darn addictive. And it also limits some of the topics that kids can see, like information about suicide and eating disorder and drugs, and tries to keep them safe online. It is also the propaganda and misinformation from TikTok in particular is a reason we need to onshore TikTok to also protect our kids and our communities.
Thank you. And Ms. Schrier, sticking with you for the next question. Is there an idea or position from a political party different from your own that you think is worth considering? Please tell us more. 90 seconds.
Well, first of all, this district is a 50-50 district, and I have said all along that neither party has a monopoly on good ideas. And that is the way I've been able to find partners in both parties to just move the ball forward. There is so much that we can agree on if we both come to the center. And so this is why I have had the ability to work with Republican members of Congress to bring forward forest health bills to maintain our forests, to make them more resilient, to bring out the underbrush and do prescribed fire, because we want to work together and ideas come from both parties. I would say the same thing about energy and permitting, that we treasure our hydropower. We know in both parties we need fewer emissions, and that's why we are working together to streamline permitting. I mentioned this earlier, but we need a path to getting small modular nuclear reactors in the ground more quickly, because if we want to address the climate crisis, we need to work together to advance clean energy, which includes nuclear energy in this portfolio.
Thank you. Ms. Goers, same question.
Thank you. I had to just double check my mute button there. as was stated by Kim Schrier, yes, this is a very 50-50 district, and it's very important that we work together. And I believe that we do have a lot in common and we work in that area. Right now, we have a retiring congressman, Congressman Kilmer, who has been working on the modernization of Congress, and that's really work on building those bridges together. That we work in bipartisan ways and reduce the partisan polarization within the legislative process. Americans are sick and tired of the bickering. They're sick and tired of us not having a budget to go forward with. They're sick and tired of hearing distracting items and not getting the business of America done. And so I really appreciate his pragmatic decision making and finding common ground to govern. And I look forward to adding that when I'm in Congress. Another area that I believe is bipartisan that we can work together on strongly is really, as we spoke earlier, on immigration reform. We have a lot of good ideas, and I look forward to implementing those and making this a safer country and a safe and humane country again.
Thank you. Ms. Goers, last 90-second question. What is your position on the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and the Freedom to Vote Act? Please explain.
Yeah, so those are two separate bills. I appreciate the increased enhancement of transparency and expanding voting access to ensure that every citizen can exercise their right to vote in the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. We really need to have modernization to some of how those acts were written, because they're being I said their intent is not being established today. The Freedom to Vote Acts, has components that I believe would have addressed what's happened here in Washington State in the 14th Legislative District, where we had a district that was drawn to be primarily Hispanic, and when a Republican Hispanic woman won, the lawsuits began, and they redrew the district and drew her out of that district in a very wonky way. And that's the reason that we need to have and continue to put forward the freedom to vote. It's imperative that voices are heard and voices are counted, and they're not manipulated in any way. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Schrier, same question.
Well, I have voted for every single bill that has come before me to make sure that every single citizen in this country has equal access to voting, whether that is mail-in or through the ballot box. It is critically important, and it is fundamental to our democracy to have every voice heard and have none disadvantaged. Clearly, we still need the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, because as soon as they took away pre-clearance, we saw states, particularly in the Southeast, start to gerrymander and do other maneuvers that would make it harder for certain groups of people to cast their vote. Look, I wish everybody in this country could vote the way that we vote here in Washington State. We get the ballots sent to us. We get the voters' pamphlets sent to us. We can get them back either in a drop box, and those are everywhere, or we can mail them without even needing postage, to just make sure that everybody has that fair chance. 3 weeks, and we can sit at home and study while we fill out our ballots. I mean, really, if the whole country could do what we do, we would be in fantastic shape. I will also just express that I am dismayed and worried about efforts right now to undermine confidence in our voting system and our democracy. It's dangerous.
Thank you. And Ms. Schrier, sticking with you, would you like to ask Ms. Goers a question on anything stated in today's forum? If so, you would have 30 seconds to ask a question, and she would have 60 seconds to answer.
I am a pediatrician, a woman doctor, and I absolutely trust women to make their own healthcare decisions and think the government ought to butt out of it. I have heard Ms. Goers say that she supported the Dobbs decision that overturned Roe v. Wade, and she supports having states make these healthcare decisions for women. In the meantime, we have seen extreme danger for women. In fact, a death in Georgia. And I'd like to know what she would say to the families and to those women who are suffering.
Ms. Goers, 60 seconds.
Thank you for that question. I appreciate for allowing me to clarify. So yes, I did say I do appreciate having local control and local government because I was that woman sitting in the doctor's office being told about my child, the health of me and my baby, and having to make that very difficult and uncomfortable and hard decision. And it's extremely private, it's extremely painful. I will never ask for a woman to have to choose between her life and the life of her child or have a third party do that. That's between her and her doctor. My statement was regarding the fact that I like it to be at the state level, and voters have overwhelmingly, state by state, said this is the mandate and this is what we want. And I believe in their voice and I accept their voice. And so what I tell women now that are suffering is your vote is your voice. I stand with you because I was that woman. And now that child of mine that I had to struggle to conceive and to carry is now 34 years old. And praise God, she's pregnant with her first child who's due in this December. And so I'm thankful and grateful for all the technology that was available.
I'm glad you had a choice because women in half the states in this country right now don't.
Thank you. Ms. Goers, do you have a question for Ms. Schrier?
Yes, we've been in several different opportunities to speak, and I often hear of Kim Schrier referring to the number of bills that she has passed. And when I look at her voting record online, it reflects that she's submitted over 80 bills, but as a primary sponsor. So my question is, as a primary sponsor, what bills have you passed that have supported the 8th Congressional District and not been one of up to 300 co-sponsors in moving a bill forward?
So in fact, I have had 18 of my own bills as the lead sponsor passed the House, the Senate, and been signed into law. Just to be clear, I really prioritize bipartisanship. And so my name will never be the only name on a bill. It will be me and a Republican colleague who submit a bill together. I will also note that there is pragmatism here, and the way that you get 18 bills signed into law in, through every Congress with both presidents is that you look for ways to attach them to bigger bills that are moving. And so my bills individually have passed in conjunction, attached to larger legislation. And I'm so proud of being pragmatic and bipartisan and having been able to deliver such a record of success for this district.
Thank you. Okay, and Ms. Schrier, sticking with you, is there any other issue or policy that wasn't covered in today's forum that you would like to address? We're down to the last two questions. There'll be 60 seconds each. Is there any other issue or policy that wasn't covered in today's forum that you'd like to address?
Well, there's two that I'll touch on really quickly. One is just, I want the people in this district to know that I hear these concerns about safety. I hear concerns about crime, organized retail crime, and I want the people in this district to know that I am a sponsor of a bill called the Combating Organized Retail Crime Act, which would put the power of the Department of Justice and Homeland Security behind local law enforcement. I have been a staunch supporter of local law enforcement, bringing home $4 million for body cameras, co-responders, and the like, so that they can do their job and do their job keeping themselves and us safe. The other, I just want to emphasize, there is nobody better than a woman doctor who has rescued high-risk newborns, taken them to the neonatal intensive care unit to call out Republican lies about abortion. Women need to make their own healthcare decision, not the government.
Thank you. Ms. Goers, is there any other issue or policy that wasn't covered that you'd like to discuss?
Yes, I'd like to address the outright lies of the harsh attacks that have been put towards me out in media, indicating that I will not stand on my own. My primary job as your Congresswoman is to represent you, the people of the 8th Congressional District. That is what I belong to. That is what I support. So when you hear the lies on TV, trust and believe, give me a call. I will tell you how I feel about every single one, as I spoke earlier. I believe in our women. I believe in our families. I've worked diligently in the last 20 plus years to support my family and my community. We were a military family and we've served relentlessly since then. I appreciate the opportunity to serve our farmers, our ag, our aerospace, our astrospace. I've served it without title, without money for 20 plus years, and I look forward to doing it for you in the next 2.
Thank you. And Ms. Goers, this is our last question. It's also 60 seconds. Please tell us something about your life experience that might surprise or intrigue voters.
Well, as I said, I'm a mother and a grandmother, but we were a military family living on an E3, E4 salary with 3 kids under the age of 4. I understand how hard it is to make the ends meet and to budget and to move from state to state and base to base to support our country. I stand here now as a mother of grandmother of 4 with a 5th on the way, and I still have a heart to serve, and I still hear because I live what you live. I've been where you've been and I do what you've done. And I look forward to continuing to serve. But, the fact that we were in Germany back in the late 80s, early 90s, we saw the price of freedom. While the Berlin Wall was up, we were there. We were there that winter. It came down and we were part of the battalion that closed it and returned back to the States. I understand the cost of freedom and I'm here to support our military personnel and our families here in the U.S. to have a great opportunity to seek the life that we so desperately enjoy here in America and the 8th Congressional. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Schrier, last question, same question.
Well, I am the daughter of a public school teacher, and I attended public schools all the way from kindergarten through the end of medical school. And I treasure that public education, and I want every child in this country to receive an excellent public education. I also want to say that in addition to the doctorate degree, the undergraduate degree was in astrophysics. And I am just chomping at the bit for the day that Sam needs help with his math homework because I am so ready to go. It looks like I have 26 seconds. So también quiero decir que hablo fluentemente el español y lo uso para comunicar con la gente que habla español en este distrito. I speak Spanish fluently, and I use that to talk with the people in this district who speak Spanish, including on Spanish radio. Thank you.
Thank you. That is the last question. The League thanks these candidates for joining us and for running for office. We encourage you to explore additional information about these and all candidates. Recordings of our forums, including forums from the primary election, are available on the League of Women Voters of Snohomish County website and on our YouTube and podcast channels. Find links at lwvsnoho.org. Vote411.org, sponsored by the League, is another good source of information. The Snohomish County voter pamphlets have been mailed, as have ballots, and Election Day is Tuesday, November 5th. Please be a voter. Thank you to our League Candidate Forum team, and special thanks to Dave Moon and the Sultan School students at TurkPride.tv, who made this live stream possible. And of course, thank you all for joining us. This concludes our Candidate Forum.